Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are doing well. So today I am going to be reviewing Ohuhu's set of 24 watercolors, which includes 24 tubes of paint as well as 6 amazing brushes. So this set of brushes is pretty cool. It comes with 3 flat brushes and 1 angular brush and 2 round brushes. So it's a good collection and variety for people starting out. One little tip before you start is make sure you wet your brushes, because usually they do come with a sealed layer of wax to keep them in shape. Okay, jumping right into the review. So for the paint tubes, they come in an aluminium tube, which is very useful, and they come all sealed up. So when you first start off using these tubes, be sure to treat it like a toothpaste. So the cap will have a little point which you can stab into the foil to open the paint. So starting off, I really like to swatch all the colors in the set. That way I know the different types of colors and variety which I have in hand, as well as to check whether the quality of the paint is good or not. So right now I have swatched every single color on my Canson watercolor paper, I believe, and I find this really useful to have a collection of swatches. That way when you're painting you can refer back to it to see which colors you'd like to use and stuff like that. Okay, so looking back at this set, I really like the rose color. It's really strong. The color tone is really nice. I also really like the Viridian, which is surprising because I usually don't really like greens, but that was really nice. I did realize that from this watercolor set, they have a very good set of blues and greens. And another thing which I found interesting was the grey. Usually I don't really see the color grey in a color set, but I realized that grey and black was actually pretty different, so I thought that was pretty interesting. So right now I am jumping in to a small little test to test out these little colors and see how they work. So today's drawing is very simple. I wanted to do something that I'm very comfortable with, so then I can test out these art supplies. So one tip for people who are beginning and trying out new art supplies is try not to paint something that's very different to what you usually do. That's because if you try painting a different way, you might not be able to test out if the art supplies are good for you. So an example would be, per se, you are usually good at working with alcohol markers, or if you're usually good at painting mermaids. So it wouldn't make sense for you to try a different art supply, or for you to paint mecha girls, because they might use different techniques, or there might be different objects and forms which you need to learn. So that would make the experiment not controlled and not really work out that well. Okay, so moving on. For this drawing, which I've decided to test the art supplies with, is I've decided to draw a mermaid. So I really do like drawing girls with long hair, and I also like blending colors in their hairs. So for this experiment, I've decided to incorporate the rose and the violet to create a nice happy gradient in their hair. So right off the bat, what I realized about these paints is that they're very highly pigmented and quite permanent. So when I was opening the paints and pouring them out and testing them out onto a tube and plate, I realized that some of it actually kind of stained me. So I was like, oh no, I need to quickly wash my hands, but I still couldn't wash them off. So for this watercolor set, the colors are pretty permanent, so you do need to be careful when you're pouring the colors out, because they might stain you or stain the plates that you're using. So that's something that you need to be a little mindful of. Oh yes, another cool thing is that this set actually comes with a skin tone. So usually I don't really see skin tones in watercolor sets, whether it be in a tube or a dry palette. So I thought this was really interesting, so I had to give it a go, and the skin tone is actually pretty good. I really enjoyed it. It actually did look like skin. It didn't look like an orangey or pinky skin, so I thought that was really good. So a little tip when it comes to shading skin, what I like to do is I try to match the shading with the environment or the hair. So in this instance, I used a lot of purples and pinks. So I used the same colors and I diluted it with more water, and then I went over the skin tone with that color. That way the whole painting has a more coherent and put together type of color tone, which makes it unknowingly and unnoticeably more coherent and whole as a piece. Okay, so the next part was actually quite surprising and interesting. So I used a very dark Prussian blue. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'll include the names of the paint that I use in the description. So I used that blue to kind of add a little bit of texture into the background, which I really liked. So initially I was planning to add bits of dark blues which were closer to the body, and then I would kind of gradient to a lighter blue through adding more water. But while doing this, I realized that the paint was pretty permanent. So as you can see right now, as I'm adding more water to the paint, the watercolor is actually not reactivating. So that means once you put the paint on, it will not dilute and move around anymore, so it's kind of permanent. So I guess this is pretty good if you want to do layering with this type of paint. For watercolors, layering is a really cool technique to try, so you could do that. So that's something that you need to bear in mind. These paints are pretty permanent, so once you have the paint on, you can't really remove it, so you got to be a little bit careful and plan ahead in terms of that. Okay, so moving on, I am now doing the line art. So recently I've been really enjoying ballpoint pens, which is kind of weird because I've always tried to stay away from them, but I've fallen in love with them so much because they come in a variety of colors, and you can also kind of make it look more sketchy and natural. So when you're doing it with watercolor, it kind of blends together. So that's something which I just experimented with this month, and I really enjoy. So right now, as you can see, I am just adding little bits of detail on top of the paint because of course when you're painting it can get a little messy. Sometimes colors might overlap, they might bleed into each other, so there's a little bit of struggle like that. So adding line art on top of the painting is a really good way to clean things up. Another reason why I really like using these pens is they allow me to add more stroke to the hair. So as you can see in some of the sections, I drew lines outside of the paint. So it kind of looks like strands or groups of hair which flow out of the bunch. So that makes the painting and the hair look more alive, more lively, and a lot more detailed, making it look more real and fun. So that's another thing which you can try out, is instead of just keeping everything inside the lines, you can draw outside of the sections, be a little bit more free to make the drawing much more fun and stylistic. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of the video. I hope you guys did enjoy this little review and speed paint. If you do want me to give you more art supply reviews and videos like these, do let me know by giving me a thumbs up or commenting in the description. for suggestions of what type of supplies you want me to try, and I'll try my best to try them out for you. But yeah, I hope you guys do enjoy these videos, and I'll see you guys very soon. Oh yes, don't forget I have a Patreon, and this painting might be the next Patreon postcard and art print, so be sure to check that out as well.